That's unrelated to me, Yi Shuihan aloofly replied. However, based on the current situation, a battle is unavoidable. Yi Wanwan sighed helplessly. It appeared the independent state was about to bid peace farewell. After Yi Shuihan left, Big Dipper opened the door and said, "Sis Feng, that old geezer is here again." "Which old geezer?" Yi Wanwan glanced at him. "That old geezer from the direct line, the one who visited this morning," Big Dipper explained. "All right, I'll be right there." Yi Wanwan nodded. Yi Wanwan was very intrigued by the direct line's sudden visit too. Just what was the direct line's goal? "Mommy, I also want to go," Tang Tang spoke up. "Be good, Tang Tang. Mommy is going to take care of business. Play together with Great White and Little Black. Mommy will be back soon." Yi Wanwan smiled. "Okay." Tang Tang was compliant and nodded. A moment later, Yi Wanwan cleaned up a little and followed Big Dipper to the conference room. Inside the conference room, an elderly man was dressed in a black shirt and black pants, looking very proper. He sat on one side with a cane in hand. "This is the president of the Fearless Alliance, Bai Feng." Big Dipper made introductions. The elderly man nodded and scrutinized Yi Wanwan before using his cane to stand up. He greeted Yi Wanwan with a smile. "President Bai, it's an honor to meet you at last." "No need for the formalities, elderly sir. May I ask what urgent matter you had for visiting our Fearless Alliance?" Yi Wanwan sat down and looked at the elderly man from the direct line, cutting straight to the point. The elderly man smiled faintly. "President Bai is very straightforward." "Great. Then I won't beat around the bush either. I came here today to ask President Bai to join the direct line's camp." Yi Wanwan furrowed her brows at once. Visit website Our List novel. She never anticipated the objective of this elderly man's trip would be to rope her to their side. However, on the other hand, Yi Wanwan understood. There would definitely be a great battle between the direct line and the collateral branch, and there were many factions in the independent state. Whether it was the collateral branch or the direct line, they probably wished to pull these neutral factions in the independent state to their side. This way, they would have a greater chance when the battle came. Upon seeing Yi Wanwan's silence, the elderly man continued with a smile. "In reality, President Bai should know that our direct line is the legitimate heir of the independent state. Moreover, the direct line is stronger in strength. Of the 12 independent states, our state has become the bottommost state. Back then, was our state ever this pitiful? What do you think, President Bai?" The 12 independent states. Yi Wanwan looked pensive. This piece of memory was indeed a part of the memories that Yi Wanwan recalled after the Scarlet Flame's headmaster's hypnosis sessions. It was her grandpa who told her about this too. In truth, the independent state was actually the independent states, and was composed of 12 enormous islands. The independent state they were currently in was merely one of the 12 islands, and it wasn't until these 12 islands combined together that the true independent states were formed. However, no independent states had any mutual interactions, so not many people knew about this. President Bai, as long as the Fearless Alliance is willing to support our direct line, when the direct line gains control in the future, we can guarantee that the Fearless Alliance will definitely become better than you are now. What do you think? The elderly man from direct line proposed amiably. "Please speak, President Bai," the elderly man said. "My parents, the madam and patriarch of the Nye family, they were captured by the direct line, right?" Yi Wanwan asked him. "Yes." The elderly man from the direct line nodded frankly. Yi Wanwan didn't expect this old man from the direct line to be this honest. He was too honest. She didn't freaking know how to respond. "I know President Bai has some misunderstandings toward our direct line, and the main cause of this misunderstanding is Nye Linglong." The elderly man smiled at Yi Wanwan. "In truth, the direct line has too many members, and a member like Nye Linglong is merely considered an offshoot and not worth a mention. Our direct line can't demand every member to obey the rules. Someone always acts recklessly and disobey the rules. There's nothing we can do." The corners of Yi Wanwan's lips twitched. What kind of freaking twisted logic was this? The direct line's members were disobeying the rules and acting recklessly outside, but it was unrelated to their direct line? Couldn't he have some shame? In truth, Nie Linglong is extremely ambitious. To be quite honest, the direct line doesn't like overly ambitious people like her, so we've already kicked her out of the direct line. As for President Bai's parents, they were captured by Nie Linglong, the elderly man continued. For some reason, Yi Wanwan suddenly started respecting the direct line for being able to say something like this without skipping a beat and tossing away all responsibilities so cleanly. They truly had thick hides. After all, Nie Linglong was dead, so they could say whatever they wanted. President Bai, if you're willing to join the direct line and persuade your parents to support the direct line, we can immediately release them, the elderly man added. Let's not waste our breaths. Tell me, just who was the mysterious person Nie Linglong reported to? He and Nie Linglong killed my brother, so I will make them pay with their lives. A cold glint flashed across Yi Wanwan's eyes. The elderly man's eyes glimmered. President Bai, there isn't any mysterious person. Third elder shouted coldly. How could there be no one? When I tracked Nie Linglong that night, she made contact with a mysterious person, and they discussed eliminating nameless Nie first. The elderly man's fingers started tapping on the table. You're free to consider my suggestion, President Bai. After saying that, the elderly man stood up and left without waiting for Yi Wanwan's response. Yi Wanwan's expression darkened. She was certain that the mysterious person definitely existed. Furthermore, that mysterious person held an important position in the direct line. The treatment of nameless Nie alone meant that Yi Wanwan couldn't have any other relationships with the direct line. They could only be enemies. Not long after the direct line left, Big Dipper dashed inside the conference room again. Sea Clan, the ancient Sea Clan sent us an invitation. Big Dipper immediately handed her the invitation. After reading the invitation, Yi Wanwan was dumbstruck. The direct line and the collateral branch were truly family and had the same temperament. The direct line just sent people to win her over, then the ancient Sea Clan also sent her an invitation. That night, Yi Wanwan brought Wenziren, several elders, Big Dipper, 7-Star, and several other members to the ancient Sea Clan. The ancient Sea Clan was considered one of the mammoth powers in the independent state, and the scope of their strength was frightening. Inside the ancient Sea Clan's conference room, Yi Wanwan immediately caught sight of Si Yihan sitting next to the leader of the ancient Sea Clan. It had to be said that these two people truly looked rather similar. Since it was an important, solemn meeting and the participants were all leaders from the independent state, Yi Wanwan and Si Yihan didn't interact too much. And the leader of the Sea Clan's words were simple and easy to understand. He wanted them to join the collateral branch and resist the direct line's invasion together. However, all the major factions were non-committal, neither agreeing nor disagreeing. No one wanted to be the first one. The second any of them agreed, it'd be the same as becoming enemies with the direct line. Even Yi Wanwan didn't declare whether she would join the ancient clans and the collateral branches camp or not. Right now, Madame and Patriarch Nie were imprisoned in the direct line. If the Fearless Alliance and the Nie family joined the collateral branch, it might infuriate the direct line, leading to unthinkable consequences. This was in line with Si Yihan's intentions. He didn't want her to act rashly and wanted them to watch and wait for the right opportunity. After departing from the ancient Sea Clan, Si Yihan escorted Yi Wanwan back to the Fearless Alliance's headquarters. The family of three ate dinner there, and Si Yihan didn't leave until Tang Tang fell asleep. Lately, Azura had too many affairs waiting for attention, and Si Yihan needed to personally take care of them. 2 days afterward, both the Fearless Alliance and Prison announced that the Fearless Alliance would join Prison and become Prison's fourth core faction. Right now, the Fearless Alliance was tightly bound together with Prison, and they could share their resources, especially in an unusual period of time like this. Furthermore, something occurred that sent shocks throughout the independent state. Azura single-handedly eradicated 3 branches of the martial arts union and destroyed 6 of their vital storehouses in one night. After that, the martial arts union retaliated, and Heavenly Hatred and Slaughter's Gate also joined. The battle couldn't be stopped. Agio, why did you start fighting with the martial arts union? From the Fearless Alliance, Yi Wanwan initiated a video call with Si Yihan. Where's Tang Tang? Si Yihan asked. He just finished eating and he's playing with Great White and Little Black on the 13th floor, Yi Wanwan answered truthfully. I was asking you why you started fighting with the martial arts union. Lately, the independent state was in an extremely tumultuous state already, so it would have been best if the matter with the martial arts union was stowed aside for now. What do you think? Si Yihan retorted. In truth, Yi Wanwan could guess that Azura didn't attack the martial arts union because of what happened on the island. It was probably because of what Si Xia did to her back then. However, making anyone from prison assess the current situation was simply unrealistic. Which one of them didn't act as their heart desired, including the Fearless Alliance? You don't need to get involved with this matter, it's just a minor battle, Si Yihan said. Yi Wanwan didn't refute this point. Both the martial arts union and prison didn't exert their whole strength, so it could indeed be considered a minor battle. Those leaders they rescued from the remote island announced their unconditional support for the collateral branch immediately. After that, the direct line acted and promptly dispatched a lot of assassins after those leaders. In a short amount of time, a dozen or so leaders were assassinated. If it weren't for Azura having the foresight to send people to protect those leaders immediately and warn them, the consequences would have been inconceivable. It wasn't only the direct line. The collateral branch also acted identically to the direct line and dispatched a lot of assassins from the ancient clans, secretly assassinating those leaders who had announced their support for the direct line. However, what no one anticipated were the sudden actions of piece of shit, Yi Shuehan. Nearly all of those well-trained assassins sent by the ancient clans died in the hands of Yi Shuehan. Right now, the entire independent state was attempting to stay out of it, and many factions were still observing, including the Fearless Alliance and the two other core factions of prison. Meanwhile, Azura had publicized their support for the collateral branch long ago and became one of the collateral branch's biggest helpers. Suddenly, the relationships in the independent state turned tangled and complicated and hard to describe. Major factions belonged to different camps, and small-scale battles would erupt nearly every day. As for the four great clans, they fell to the observer side. The direct line and the collateral branch sent someone to visit and lobby the four great clans nearly every day but never received a definite response. Nonetheless, Yi Wanwan was incredibly aware that it was absolutely impossible for powers at the level of the four great clans to rest easy, maintain neutrality, and stay out of the conflict. The time merely hadn't come yet. Once the time was ripe, the four great clans had to make a decision. This battle involved the entire independent state. Not a single power could remain on the sidelines. Even if they were unwilling to join the war between the direct line and the collateral branch, they had no choice. Late at night, in the Fearless Alliance, Yi Wanwan's thoughts raced as she mulled over what road she should take in the future. Right now, her parents were still in the hands of the direct line. If she rashly supported the collateral branch and provoked the direct line, it would be idiotic. Yi Wanwan merely wanted to avenge her brother, nameless Nie, and rescue her parents from the hands of the direct line. She truly was uninterested in the overarching war between the collateral branch and the direct line. Governing the independent state and such? It had nothing to do with her. Yi Wanwan suddenly called outside the door. Sis Feng, you were looking for me? Big Dipper entered the room. Call some people. We're going to visit the direct line, Yi Wanwan instructed. Big Dipper was dumbfounded. No way, right, Sis Feng? We're going to the direct line, at this critical time. Nonsense, what's wrong with going to the direct line? Yi Wanwan asked. But if we visit the direct line, isn't it the same as supporting the direct line? Big Dipper scratched his head. Enough rubbish. Hurry and make preparations, Yi Wanwan ordered impatiently. Soon, several elders of the Fearless Alliance, Big Dipper, Seven Star, and top higher-ups like Wenziren all departed and headed toward the perimeters of the Fearless Alliance's territory. Heh, your visit this late at night is truly surprising, President Bai. An elderly man from the direct line greeted with a smile as he hastily walked outside to receive them. Yi Wanwan wasn't unfamiliar with this elderly man. He was the one who had visited the Fearless Alliance these past few days. I won't waste time with you. My objective for coming here today is very simple. The Fearless Alliance and the Nye family will support the direct line, but you must release my parents first. Yi Wanwan got straight to the point. The elderly man's expression turned joyful. That's right. Yi Wanwan nodded. Great, if that's really true, then President Bai's parents are naturally our honored guests. The direct line will immediately release them. The elderly man from direct line nodded. Before Yi Wanwan could say anything, the elderly man continued. However, since both the Fearless Alliance and the Nye family are supporting the direct line, let's sign a treaty. The elderly man sent his subordinate a look. The subordinate immediately brought a war treaty to them. When Yi Wanwan read the contents, she was dumbstruck. The direct line was seriously freaking cunning and calculating. This type of war treaty was managed by the 12 Independent States Arbitration Council. The 12 Independent States Arbitration Council represented the largest-scale neutral power in the 12 independent states. Nearly all of the rules in the independent states were crafted by the Arbitration Council, and no one dared to violate the decisions of the Arbitration Council. Even the direct line and collateral branch didn't have the guts. This treaty would actually be directly supervised by the Arbitration Council. If either party violated it, what? You don't trust me, elderly sir? I'm the president of the Fearless Alliance and the head of the Nye family, to say the least. What happened to trust between humans? Could it be our trust is less than this piece of paper? Yi Wanwan said to the elderly man with a sigh. The elderly man from direct line chuckled and looked at Yi Wanwan. President Bai, if it was another faction saying this, I would have believed it. However, it's precisely because President Bai is the president of the Fearless Alliance that we must honestly carry out what we promised and sign this war treaty. What about the Fearless Alliance, huh? Shouldn't you ask around? The Fearless Alliance, especially me, the president, has always sworn by our word, Yi Wanwan replied. President Bai, everyone knows about the Fearless Alliance's reputation, so you don't need to say any more. Of course, the direct line believes in President Bai's sincerity, but let's sign the treaty, the elderly man said. You're too freaking shameless. In the end, Yi Wanwan had no choice but to pick up the pen and sign the treaty as well as stamping her handprint on the document. Good now. Yi Wanwan pushed the contract back toward them. The elderly man examined the treaty for a moment before nodding at Yi Wanwan and smiling. It's good. Welcome to the direct line's big family, Fearless Alliance and Nye family. Where's my dad and mom? Yi Wanwan asked. Don't worry, President Bai. Your father and mother are at a different branch. They will return to the Nye residence early tomorrow morning, the elderly man replied. Yi Wanwan nodded. Fine, I'll trust you this one time. After saying that, she led the Fearless Alliance group out of the room. Damn, Sis Feng, are we really joining the direct line? Isn't this too hasty? Big Dipper asked on their return trip. Yi Wanwan brusquely snapped, her mood sour. She previously planned to trick the direct line and make them release her parents first. Nothing was more important than her parents' safety. Who would have thought the direct line would be so difficult to trick? They directly pulled out a war treaty that was managed by the Arbitration Council. After you signed this contract, the direct line wouldn't care whether you fulfilled your end of the bargain or not because at that time, the people from the Arbitration Council would appear personally. Even the direct line and the collateral branch had to be on their best behavior and act courteously when they met with the Arbitration Council. It seemed to be a bit tricky this time. However, Yi Wanwan had never seen the Arbitration Council and was clueless about their true capabilities. Xiao Feng, the Arbitration Council is above the 12 independent states' laws and system, when Xiren said, everyone in the 12 independent states has to obey the Arbitration Council's laws and implementations. This includes the ban on firearms and explosives, which is clearly prohibited by the Arbitration Council. If anyone violates the laws, the Arbitration Council will act personally and no one can save the violator. I know that, Yi Wanwan replied. In Yi Wanwan's memories, Nameless Nian nearly became a consultant for the Arbitration Council, but he rejected the position. Yi Wanwan never expected the Arbitration Council to be this frightening. Thankfully I'm prepared. Do you think I'd lose against the direct line in terms of shamelessness? Yi Wanwan's lips turned up with a smirk. In the midst of Yi Wanwan's anxious waiting, Madam and Patriarch Nye finally returned. Right now, in the Nye residence living room, Madam and Patriarch Nye were sitting in the chief seats while Yi Wanwan stayed near them. Judging from Madam and Patriarch Nye's appearances, the direct line didn't seem to have done anything to them and merely imprisoned them normally. Yi Wanwan couldn't find even a superficial scratch on them. "Worryless, we have to thank you this time," Madam Nye said as she grasped Yi Wanwan's hand. "Dad, Mom, I'm glad you're fine." Yi Wanwan smiled happily. As long as Dad and Mom were all right, she was relieved. Yi Wanwan couldn't withstand losing any more of her family. "Worryless, where's your eldest brother?" Patriarch Nye looked around the room and didn't see nameless Nye. "The eldest brother. He accepted a mission earlier and went elsewhere. It will probably be a while before he's back," Yi Wanwan answered. Yi Wanwan previously laid down the order that no one was allowed to reveal what happened to nameless Nye to Madam and Patriarch Nye. Any violators would be expelled from the Nye family. "Hurry and tell your brother to come back. Our Nye family won't be able to stay out of the conflict between the direct line and the collateral branch," Patriarch Nye said with a frown. "Dad, I told eldest brother already, but eldest brother isn't in the independent state right now and he's overseas. Right now, the independent state has gone under lockdown because of the battle that's about to happen, so eldest brother couldn't come back even if he wanted to," Yi Wanwan said. Patriarch Nye snorted. "If your brother could be half as good as you, your mom and I could die without any worries." Actually, eldest brother is really good. Don't blame him. I agreed to let him accept the mission too, and who would have expected things to play out this way as soon as eldest brother left?" Yi Wanwan said after a moment of silence. "Forget it." Madam Nye shook her head. "We're used to this, but we absolutely can't lower our guard in the battle between the direct line and the collateral branch this time. I'm leaning toward the collateral branch." Yi Wanwan completely anticipated her parents to lean toward the collateral branch. If they were captured and imprisoned by the direct line and turned around to support the direct line moments after they were released, that would be absurd. That ingrate, Nye Linglong. Patriarch Nye's eyes glinted coldly. Immediately issue a Nye family warrant and capture her at all costs. Patriarch and Madam Nye were still unaware of the fact that Nye Linglong was dead already. The current situation was so chaotic. If she informed them of the truth at this critical time and her parents did something in their incensed state, the consequences would be unthinkable. According to the terms of the treaty, the Fearless Alliance had to announce its cooperation with the direct line within 3 days. However, when the third day came, there still wasn't any activity from the Fearless Alliance. In the Fearless Alliance's conference room, every higher-up from the Fearless Alliance was gathered there, as well as members from the Rose of Death that Yi Wanwan previously founded. Little Lolita, Heidi, and the others were intently looking at Yi Wanwan. It had been such a long time, they thought their master had forgotten about them. Right now, the Rose of Death was developing fairly successfully. They had the support of the Fearless Alliance's funds in their initial stage, which greatly alleviated any pressure. Recently, the Rose of Death maintained a decent relationship with the surrounding groups and conducted many business dealings with other people. The Rose of Death today wasn't the Rose of Death of the past anymore. Aside from a few old faces, the majority of the higher-ups from the Rose of Death were new faces and possessed extraordinary strength. The elders from the Rose of Death settled their gazes on Yi Wanwan. So this woman before them was the leader of the Rose of Death. It was their first time meeting her. "Luing," Yi Wanwan suddenly called. Luing nodded in response. "From this moment on, the Fearless Alliance is announcing it will declare war on the Rose of Death, the kind that won't cease until one side is dead," Yi Wanwan declared with a serious expression. Whether it was the higher-ups from the Fearless Alliance or the higher-ups from the Rose of Death, they were dumbfounded. What freaking game was this? The Fearless Alliance was declaring a life-or-death war on the Rose of Death? Just what was their president playing at? Didn't both the Fearless Alliance and the Rose of Death belong to her? If a war was declared, wasn't it the same as fighting herself? "Sis Fong, what do you mean?" Big Dipper looked at Yi Wanwan in incomprehension. The literal meaning, Yi Wanwan replied. Before Big Dipper could respond, Lu Ying suddenly stood up. From today onward, the Rose of Death is at war with the Fearless Alliance. Within half a day, news of the Fearless Alliance and the Rose of Death at war with each other rapidly spread throughout the independent state. All the major factions in the independent state started paying attention to this inexplicable war between the Fearless Alliance and the Rose of Death. The Rose of Death? Which Rose of Death? Is it that world-class power Rose of Death? How's that possible? If it was really that Rose of Death, news of them would have burst everywhere already. Moreover, why did the Fearless Alliance have to declare war on that old Rose of Death? Are they suicidal? Is that even a question? It must be some new emerging power, and the leader is probably an admirer of the old Rose of Death, so they named their group the Rose of Death too. Strange. How did a new minor faction like the Rose of Death suddenly become enemies with the Fearless Alliance? The Fearless Alliance's own strength is frighteningly fearsome already, and it recently announced it would become Prison's fourth core faction days ago. All the groups in the independent state couldn't understand the Rose of Death's suicidal behavior and simply treated it as a show. Some factions believed that the Rose of Death was merely impulsive. There was no way they would really start fighting. It probably wouldn't be long until they knelt in front of Bai Feng to kowtow and apologize profusely. You have to provide funds and forces in the afternoon of the fourth day. The elderly man from the direct line visited the Fearless Alliance again. Yi Wanwan received the elderly man in the conference room. President Bai, I remember we previously signed a war treaty, right? The elderly man asked. When Yi Wanwan heard that, the corners of her lips turned up and she nodded. Of course I haven't forgotten. The direct line honors promises, and I naturally wouldn't go back on my word either. Then this is a little strange. The war treaty clearly states that the Fearless Alliance needs to announce it has established an alliance with the direct line within 3 days of signing the treaty. It has been 4 days now, but the Fearless Alliance is still immobile. Don't you think this is a little improper, President Bai? The elderly man asked. What are you saying, sir? Don't you know that the Fearless Alliance has declared war on a group? Yi Wanwan retorted with a faint smile. Oh, are you referring to that admirer of the Rose of Death, President Bai? The group that's also called the Rose of Death? The elderly man said pensively. That's right. Yi Wanwan nodded hastily. President Bai, based on my knowledge, that Rose of Death was founded recently and can't compare to the Fearless Alliance in both finances or manpower. Moreover, what does the Fearless Alliance going to battle with the Rose of Death have anything to do with announcing your alliance treaty with the direct line? Elderly sir, that's not right. First of all, you're overly underestimating the Rose of Death. Although they're still a young group, they're swimming in money and had a large number of experts join in a short amount of time, so their scope isn't inferior to the Fearless Alliance at all. Also, you said it yourself, elderly sir. The Fearless Alliance signed an alliance treaty with the direct line, and it's written in black and white in this treaty that this is a mutual alliance. If the direct line engages in a war, the Fearless Alliance will unconditionally support you without shirking. We'll provide money if we have money, and provide people if we have people. Similarly, if our Fearless Alliance goes to war, the direct line also has to unconditionally support us. Yi Wanwan smiled faintly. The elderly man became contemplative after hearing that. His fingers lightly tapped the surface of the table as he looked at Yi Wanwan. So, what are you saying, President Bai? Not much. Sure, the Fearless Alliance will immediately announce it has reached an alliance agreement with the direct line. Yi Wanwan then called First Elder into the conference room. President. First Elder stopped nearby and looked at Yi Wanwan. First Elder, immediately go and announce that the Fearless Alliance will unconditionally support the direct line from today onward, Yi Wanwan said. All right, President, this subordinate understands. First Elder nodded before promptly turning to the elderly man from the direct line. Then, since it's like that, we'll request the direct line to support us with money and manpower. Our war with the Rose of Death is about to begin. The elderly man wrinkled his brows. Was President Fearless acting slick with him? Right now, the direct line was preparing intensely for its war with the collateral branch. How could they have extra finances and manpower to help the Fearless Alliance fight against another faction? Moreover, back then, the direct line made the Fearless Alliance sign a war alliance treaty so that the Fearless Alliance would support their direct line. How come the Fearless Alliance was making the direct line provide money and strength to help them go to war instead? What cosmic joke was this? Thinking on your behalf, First Elder. Yi Wanwan shot First Elder a look. What are you saying? Does the direct line need us to remind them? Yi Wanwan slapped the treaty on the conference table. Everything is written clearly in this treaty. Are you saying direct line will be indifferent to the Fearless Alliance's struggle against the Rose of Death? This is a conditional contract that's directly managed by the Arbitration Council. You're too disrespectful, First Elder. First Elder nodded frantically and turned to the elderly man from the direct line with an apologetic expression. The president is right, this subordinate didn't think things through thoroughly. Our treaty is managed by the Arbitration Council, so direct line definitely won't sit by and do nothing. It's all this subordinate's fault for running my mouth before thinking it through. Yi Wanwan smiled faintly. Of course, say, our Fearless Alliance is quite lucky. If we didn't sign this war treaty, we'd have definitely spent a lot of money and people in this war with the Rose of Death. But it's great now that we have the direct line's help. We won't have to worry about expenses or manpower and can directly pulverize the Rose of Death to death. Right, you're correct, President. When a faction like us fights a war, we're fighting with money. Now that we have the direct line providing money and strength. First Elder added seriously. Yi Wanwan waved her hand and interrupted. First Elder, why are you so chatty? Hurry and announce it. After we've announced it, we can attack the Rose of Death. Yes, this subordinate will leave now. After we announce it, the conditions of the treaty will officially go into effect. After saying that, First Elder turned to leave. The elderly man from the direct line suddenly stood up. Wait! First Elder stopped and turned around, looking at the other elderly man in confusion. Elderly sir, what is it? Is there a problem? Yi Wanwan asked curiously. Heh, the elderly man chuckled lightly and answered, there's no hurry to make an announcement. Yi Wanwan immediately shook her head. How could there be no hurry? You don't feel hurried, elderly sir, but I feel hurried. We have to announce it, we're waiting to go to war. No hurry, the elderly man quietly replied. Hurry, hurry, hurry. Yi Wanwan turned to First Elder. What are you standing around for? Quickly go and announce it. All right, President. The elderly man from the direct line interjected. It's like this, President Bai. Since the Fearless Alliance is busy these next few days, you can take care of business first and make the announcement after it's taken care of. Yi Wanwan frowned deeply and looked at the elderly man with displeasure. Say, don't tell me the direct line is unwilling to provide money or people. It's written clearly in our treaty that our cooperation is mutual. We will support the direct line, and the direct line will also support the Fearless Alliance. How come the direct line is cowering when the Fearless Alliance needs to fight a war? You're the direct line, no? Isn't that improper? The elderly man answered, President Bai, you've misunderstood my meaning and the direct line. This war treaty is managed by the Arbitration Council, so we wouldn't dare to not fulfill the terms. If President Fearless really wants the direct line to interfere and help, that's fine. It's just that we were thinking on behalf of President Bai and the Fearless Alliance's reputation. Thinking on our behalf? Yi Wanwan propped her chin up. What are you saying, elderly sir? What trick are they playing? The elderly man from direct line nodded at Yi Wanwan and chuckled. President Bai, the Fearless Alliance is at least a top faction in the independent state, am I correct? Yi Wanwan replied, Of course. Sir, if you ask about the Fearless Alliance or mention Bai Feng's name, children would start crying. Exactly. The Fearless Alliance and President Bai have a thunderous reputation in the independent state. There isn't anyone in the independent state who doesn't know about you. What is the Rose of Death in comparison? Not only are they a knockoff group, but they also haven't been around for that long. In a war between the Fearless Alliance and the Rose of Death, everyone knows the Rose of Death is seeking their own deaths and trying to hit a rock with an egg. If the direct line rashly interferes at this time and provides money and support, so what if it's a crushing victory? At that time, everyone in the independent state would gossip and say that not only did the Fearless Alliance bully a newly founded knockoff group, but they also made the direct line join. It wouldn't be good if that got around, right? Yi Wanwan pursed her mouth. So what? I don't care. The elderly man from Direct Line. Actually, President, this subordinate thinks the Direct Line is right. If the Direct Line interferes, we'd humiliate ourselves even if we won, First Elder interjected. Oh, it's really humiliating? Yi Wanwan repeated. President, we're the strong bullying the weak to begin with. If we make the Direct Line join too, First Elder looked a little embarrassed. That's right, that's right. The elderly man from Direct Line smiled faintly. What First Elder is saying is what I'm trying to express. It's not worth it. Yi Wanwan rubbed her chin and mulled over this for a long time before finally nodding. But it's really not worth it if it's as you both say. It's rather humiliating, though I don't care whether it's humiliating or not. However, while I don't care about shame, the Direct Line has to worry about shame, right? Then we'll hold off on that, and we'll eradicate the Rose of Death ourselves. Even if the Fearless Alliance attacks on your own, the Rose of Death will definitely be eradicated within 3 days, the elderly man from Direct Line said. I'll destroy them in 2 days at most, Yi Wanwan refuted in good humor. All right, then I wish you great success, President Bai, and I won't disturb you anymore. After saying that, the elderly man stood up and left. Outside the Fearless Alliance, the middle-aged man who came with the elderly man from the Direct Line frowned and said, Bai Feng is clearly up to something. She's intentionally delaying things. The elderly man snorted and aloofly said, if she wants to delay things, let her delay. I'd like to see what kind of tricks she can play. The Alliance Treaty is directly managed by the Arbitration Council, so it's useless to fight it regardless of how slick she is. At the same time, the war between the Fearless Alliance and the Rose of Death had erupted. The first battle took place in the northern region, and Big Dipper was in charge. However, the battle didn't last 2 hours before the advancing troops led by Big Dipper fell like a landslide and surrendered without much resistance. 1 day later, the main battle between the Fearless Alliance and the Rose of Death also started. The Fearless Alliance's side was led by Yi Wanwan personally, while the Rose of Death's side was led by a middle-aged man named Liao Chen. The Fearless Alliance and the Rose of Death had just engaged when the Fearless Alliance's main force crumbled and was forced to retreat. This situation stupefied every faction in the independent state. Madame and Patriarch Nye originally intended to dispatch some fighting forces from the Nye family to assist the Fearless Alliance but were solemnly rejected by Yi Wanwan. Prison S4 factions are all defeated, trepidation-filled Yi Wanwan. If the Nye family suddenly meddled in this, it would be awful. How would she keep acting out this show? To make things realistic, Yi Wanwan didn't inform anyone about her plan, including Azura and Prison's other 2 core factions. However, what Yi Wanwan didn't expect was the way it evoked the attention of everyone in the independent state despite it being an obvious pretend fight. Was the Fearless Alliance's reputation that great? In truth, it wasn't the Fearless Alliance's fame that attracted much attention. The main reason for the sudden interest was the knockoff group, the Rose of Death. That name alone was enough. Everyone wanted to see who was arrogant and egoistically enough to name their faction, the Rose of Death, and wanted to watch the Fearless Alliance pulverize this knockoff group. On the battleground, the elites of the Fearless Alliance and the members of the Rose of Death were fighting intensely. Any bystander wouldn't be able to differentiate one side from the other. Fuck me. Attack freaking lighter. You're beating my head with a stick and you're still using that much force? You're freaking getting real with me, aren't you? I'll really hit back, alright? At this moment, Big Dipper and 7 Star joined the fight. Big Dipper had just entered the altercation when he was instantly kicked by little Lolita from the Rose of Death. Big Dipper's face turned ghastly pale, and he started spitting out a large volume of blood from his mouth. Little Lolita, 7-star glanced at Big Dipper, who had fallen to the ground and was spurting blood from his mouth. It's too much. Brothers, hurry and run. The rose of death is too strong. We can't win. Immediately, Big Dipper stood up like nothing happened and slapped the dust off his body before shouting to his fellow members. After saying that, he immediately fled to the rear. Read more chapters at List Novel. The members of the Fearless Alliance looked at each other and promptly fled as well. The leader on the Rose of Death side, Liao Chen, was rendered speechless. Even if they were acting, couldn't they act a bit more realistically? He wasn't asking for much, just a teeny bit more realistic acting would do. Big Dipper was lightly kicked but spat blood for a whole freaking minute. This was a freaking joke. On the Fearless Alliance's side, Yi Wanwan sat with her ankle on her knee and nodded in satisfaction as she watched the battle. However, before Yi Wanwan could communicate with Liao Chen, she suddenly caught sight of Azura's group. Sweat drenched Yi Wanwan's body in an instant. Agio! Yi Wanwan hastily dialed Si Yihan's number. Si Yihan's voice was emitted from the phone. Don't mess this up. We're acting. Yi Wanwan hurriedly said. There's a mission today. They're just passing by, Si Yihan replied. Mission? Passing by. So I'm being delusional, huh? Is he really my man? Like he said, Azura really was just passing by. Azura traversed through the battleground and left without turning back, as though they didn't see anything. However, this scene took on a different flavor in the eyes of many leaders of the independent state. Fuck me. Who the heck is the Rose of Death? Aren't they too freaking strong? Even Azura's main fighting force was instantly defeated? Just what's going on? Hold on. I think I also saw Heavenly Hatred and Slaughter's Gate. My god. The Rose of Death instantly defeated the Fearless Alliance, Heavenly Hatred, Azura, and also Slaughter's Gate. They couldn't win a 4-against-1 battle. How long has it been? Must take full responsibility for the Fearless Alliance. It's over. The 4 core factions of prison were instantly crushed by the Rose of Death and utterly defeated. Then, could it be, it's not a knockoff? That Rose of Death is really the old Rose of Death. Within half a day, the Rose of Death had resurrected and managed to defeat the 4 core factions of prison like breaking off a stick from a dead tree. Did we see things wrong? Maybe Azura was just passing by? Passing by? Bullshit. Are you an idiot? What's the relationship between Azura and the Fearless Alliance? President Fearless and Lord Azura even have a child together, so of course he was bringing Heavenly Hatred and Slaughter's Gate over to help the Fearless Alliance but couldn't win. Half a day later, the Fearless Alliance declared its defeat. Another half a day later, the Rose of Death announced all of the higher-ups and elites of the Fearless Alliance surrendered and transferred into the Rose of Death. Now, the Fearless Alliance turned into an empty shell. At the same time, Yi Wanwan led an empty-shelled Fearless Alliance and announced she would unconditionally support the Direct Line. Aside from the unconditional support for the Direct Line, Yi Wanwan also announced she'd go to the Arbitration Council and sue the Direct Line. The Fearless Alliance and the Direct Line clearly signed an alliance treaty and promised unconditional mutual support for each other. However, during the war between the Fearless Alliance and the Rose of Death, the Direct Line kept making excuses and was unwilling to provide assistance, which is what led to the Fearless Alliance's defeat. The Direct Line didn't strictly adhere to the terms of the alliance treaty, so they must take full responsibility for the Fearless Alliance's defeat. At the Direct Line's branch, the expression of the elderly man from the Direct Line was so dark that ink could drip from it. He never expected the Fearless Alliance to be shameless to this extent. What a nice move of substituting a raccoon for the Crown Prince. Although the Direct Line didn't have any evidence, the elderly man knew that the knockoff Rose of Death had to be a part of the Fearless Alliance and the two groups were merely acting. The Fearless Alliance intentionally pretended to be no match for them and were defeated. So all the higher-ups and elite members of the Fearless Alliance surrendered and were absorbed into the Rose of Death, leaving behind an empty shell in the Fearless Alliance. And the president of the Fearless Alliance, by Feng, was extremely shameless. She brought the hollowed-out Fearless Alliance with her and announced her support for the direct line. What purpose did the direct line have for the support of an empty shell? Not only that, but she was actually suing the direct line at the Arbitration Council and claiming that the direct line didn't help, so they had to take full responsibility for the Fearless Alliance's defeat. At that moment, the elderly man from the direct line wanted nothing more than to mangle Yi Wanwan into pieces. However, what was most headache-inducing wasn't President Fearless supporting the direct line with an empty shell in tow. It was them suing the direct line at the Arbitration Council. They signed a treaty with the Fearless Alliance, and the treaty clearly stated the cooperation was mutual. If the Fearless Alliance was engaged in a war, the direct line must also help. This was the direct line's responsibility. However, who could have expected the Fearless Alliance and the knockoff Rose of Death to be acting? The mighty Fearless Alliance crumbled in defeat within a day. Half a day ago, the elderly man, who had been constantly observing the battle between the Fearless Alliance and the Rose of Death, had detected something was amiss and intended to immediately lead people to support the Fearless Alliance due to the terms of the Alliance Treaty. However, the Fearless Alliance was defeated too freaking fast. It didn't give them any time to obey the terms of the Alliance Treaty. President Fearless, the elderly man from the direct line, fumed with rage between gritted teeth. You're too shameless. Chapter 2209. Did she still want her damn pride? The elderly man from the direct line wore a dark expression on his face. Not only did President Fearless leave the hollowed-out Fearless Alliance for the direct line, but she was also taking the direct line to court at the Arbitration Council? Did she still want her damn pride? At that same moment, in the Nye residence, in the living room, Madame and Patriarch Nye were beaming with joy. Who would have expected the knockoff Rose of Death to be a pretense? It was a second cloak used by their daughter to cover the Fearless Alliance. Worryless, your scheme was deployed too cleverly, Patriarch Nye praised Yi Wanwan joyously. In order to rescue them from the direct line, Yi Wanwan had no choice but to pretend to agree and sign an alliance treaty with the direct line. However, a war occurred between the Fearless Alliance and the knockoff Rose of Death, and the Fearless Alliance was defeated and forced to surrender. As a result, all of the Fearless Alliance's power was transferred to the knockoff Rose of Death. This way, it wouldn't be a problem for Yi Wanwan to give the entire hollow Fearless Alliance to the direct line, let alone saying the Fearless Alliance would support direct line. Aside from that, Yi Wanwan also got leverage on the direct line and would sue the direct line at the Arbitration Council now, the charge being that the direct line didn't adhere to the terms of the Alliance Treaty. Madame Nye was filled with pride as she looked at Yi Wanwan. Just how did her daughter's mind develop? How did she think of such a scheme? But Worryless, you must be more careful in the future. The Arbitration Council isn't to be taken lightly. If the direct line gains leverage on you and retaliates, the consequences would be inconceivable, Patriarch Nye warned Yi Wanwan. Yi Wanwan nodded at once. She would prudently treat the Arbitration Council and wouldn't dare to be careless in the slightest. Say, don't you think this direct line is a bit dumb? They were led in circles by our daughter, Patriarch Nye joked with Madame Nye. Madame Nye glanced at her husband. How are they dumb? If it was you, would you have predicted Worryless to pull this trick? The cicada shed its carapace, substituting a raccoon for the crown prince, finding a loophole in the alliance treaty and turning the tables back on the direct line. If it were me, I really wouldn't have predicted it, Patriarch Nye replied. Exactly. So what do you mean the direct line is dumb? It was clearly Worryless who's too clever. She's so similar to her brother when he was younger, Madame Nye said. At the mention of nameless Nye, Patriarch Nye's expression dropped instantly. Don't talk about that damn punk. He never has any discipline. Dad, Mum. Yi Wanwan looked at her parents and asked, just who are the Arbitration Council? Patriarch Nye took a sip of tea before explaining, the Arbitration Council is a council that's above the 12 independent states and is considered the 12 independent states' supervisor and judge. Both the abolishment and establishment of the 12 independent states' laws need to pass through the Arbitration Council. Let's put it this way, Any leader or overlord is under the governance of the Arbitration Council. The direct line and the collateral branch might be considered the independent state's strongest factions, but they're nothing when they meet at the Arbitration Council. Without rules, nothing could be done. And the existence of the Arbitration Council was the law, and every member of the 12 independent states had to obey them. That fearsome, Yi Wanwan looked pensive. Your brother, nameless Nye, caught the eyes of the Arbitration Council, and they wanted your brother to become a consultant, but your brother was unwilling to go. So infuriating, Patriarch Nye said. Chapter 22:10 Acted overkill? What's a consultant? Yi Wanwan was intrigued. In the 12 independent states, the Arbitration Council recruits a consultant from every state. To put it plainly, their responsibility is to report their state's situation to the Arbitration Council, Patriarch Nye replied. How does the Martial Arts Union compare to the Arbitration Council? Yi Wanwan asked. Madame Nye smiled. Worryless Nye, the Martial Arts Union is merely one individual faction. In truth, every state has a group that's similar to the Martial Arts Union, and this kind of group is simply an imitation of the Arbitration Council. Understanding finally dawned on Yi Wanwan after listening to Madame Nye's explanation. In other words, the Arbitration Council was the authentic version while groups like the Martial Arts Union were merely pirated copies. Worryless, keep working hard and maybe one day, you'll become our state's consultant for the Arbitration Council. Right now, out of the 12 independent states, only our state doesn't have a consultant, Patriarch Nye said cheerfully. Yi Wanwan felt her head swelling. Her martial arts achievements definitely couldn't compare to her elder brother, nameless Nye. Even though her intelligence was higher, it was only artificially forced higher by her shamelessness. People talked about the Arbitration Council as such a high-end and classy entity, so they probably wouldn't care for a shameless person like her, right? After eating dinner with Patriarch and Madame Nye, Yi Wanwan drove back to the Fearless Alliance. The current Fearless Alliance had turned into an empty shell and only a handful of people remained. Even Great White and Virus were moved to the Rose of Death's headquarters. Sis Feng, you're finally back. A young man, whose entire body was covered in gauze and who walked with a limp, appeared next to Yi Wanwan. Who are you? Yi Wanwan was bewildered. Sis Feng, it's me. I'm Big Dipper. Can't you recognize my voice? Big Dipper hastily said. Who? Big Dipper? Yi Wanwan was dumbstruck as she stared at Big Dipper. It had only been a few hours, so how did this guy end up like this? Who beat you? Yi Wanwan asked. No one beat me. I purposefully dressed like this. Our scouts told us that the old geezer from the direct line is coming again, so I quickly made myself look more sorrowful or else they won't believe us. Big Dipper said. Yi Wanwan immediately gave Big Dipper a thumbs up and nodded. Nicely done. Of course, Sis Feng. Big Dipper snickered. Read more chapters at List Novel. Come, let's go and meet that old man, Yi Wanwan said. In the conference room, Yi Wanwan led the limping and gauze-covered Big Dipper inside the conference room. The elderly man and several members of the direct line were situated in the room already. When the elderly man saw Yi Wanwan, he smiled. President Bai, is there any meaning to the game you're playing? Game? Yi Wanwan looked at the elderly man. What do you mean? How am I playing? President Bai will ignore the other things, but the Fearless Alliance couldn't even defeat a newly founded knockoff group? And you were destroyed by them instead? Yi Wanwan nodded. If we can't win, we can't win. What can we do? Look at him. See how beaten up he is? Yi Wanwan pulled Big Dipper toward her. It hurts? It hurts. I couldn't win, ouch. They're strong. Endless wails came from Big Dipper's mouth. Yi Wanwan, this is a bit of a freaking overkill. Chapter 22:11 Dawn. Dismantle my stage. The elderly man from Direct Line was so incensed he couldn't talk. He originally thought Bai Feng was merely dragging things out for a few days. Who would have expected her to have thoughts of such a damaging move, causing him to be in a completely disadvantageous position and suffer a double loss? Yi Wanwan sat with her legs crossed on the chief seat in the conference room and coldly looked at the infuriated elderly man from the direct line. Wasn't this old guy too naive? Did he really think the Nye family was such an easy target? Just watch. I'll definitely avenge my brother. The elderly man darkly looked at Yi Wanwan and said, President Bai, aren't you too naive? Do you really think your tacky and lousy methods can deceive everyone? Yi Wanwan raised her brows. Tacky, lousy methods? Then what are you, the person tricked by my lousy methods? You, hostility flared in the elderly man's eyes and he yelled fiercely, Bai Feng, do you think the entire independent state is blind? Or do you think the arbitration council is this easy to fool and they'd believe your nonsense? Yi Wanwan smiled at him like he was a fool. This old geezer might hold an enormous amount of power in the independent state, was an important character in the direct line, and possessed outstanding martial strength and tactics, but he was underestimating the impact of a certain weapon. This weapon was public opinion. This was the greatest weapon she learned from China's entertainment industry. Public clamor could confound right and wrong, and defamation could destroy a person. Right now, everyone in the independent state knew the Fearless Alliance was defeated by the Rose of Death, and no one would believe the one-sided story from the direct line. Moreover, thanks to her baby, her last suspicion might be dissipated. If the Fearless Alliance wasn't trustworthy, what about Azura? Slaughter's Gate? Heavenly hatred? Hence, even if the Arbitration Council investigated this matter, this was the only result they'd obtain. Clearly, the elderly man from the direct line was also aware of this point. He was cursing Yi Wanwan's vileness and shamelessness when footsteps were heard outside the door. The elderly man's subordinate knocked and opened the conference room door with several people in tow. The newcomers were Si Yihan, Jiang Lihan, and Xie Qianchuan. Why are Ajio and those two here? Yi Wanwan reflexively glanced at the elderly man from the direct line, her heart skipping a beat. These three mustn't have a slip of tongue, especially Jiang Lihan. When the elderly man from the direct line saw the newcomers, he immediately received them excitedly. Lord Azura, gang leader Jiang, gang leader Xie, perfect timing. The three of you are reputable characters in the independent state, so don't tell me you'll also utter nonsense like a certain shameless rascal. That day, your people were merely passing by, so how could they have been defeated by the Rose of Death? These three mammoths were different from the Fearless Alliance. They might be vicious, but they still retain their pride and absolutely wouldn't employ such shameless and despicable methods. Yi Wanwan immediately warningly glared at the trio. Damn, you better not dismantle my stage at a time like this. When the trio received Yi Wanwan's, everyone must work as one and act shamelessly at this critical time, warning gaze, their expressions turned complicated. Xie Qianchuan looked at the elderly man from the direct line, then Yi Wanwan before scratching his nose and turning to Si Yihan. As for Jiang Lihan, he had a gut of fury simmering in him. Originally, he was perfectly fine and lazing at home when suddenly, the outside world was madly saying that his heavenly hatred in prison was defeated by some knockoff Rose of Death group that came from who knew where. Chapter 2212 have something like integrity? The rumors sounded so realistic and claimed they were beaten to the point of pissing their pants in terror. This was the perfect example of getting into trouble even though he was sitting at home and minding his own business. Hence, he came here to seek retribution from Yi Wanwan. Damn, aren't you too shameless? Jiang Lihan shouted angrily. The elderly man turned joyous. You heard it, Bai Feng. Gang leader Jiang has spoken already. It's clearly you. Before the elderly man could finish speaking, the quiet Si Yihan fixed his cufflinks and nonchalantly interrupted him. Elder Shui, back then, it was you who determined the treaty, but now, not only did you breach the contract and stand by without doing anything, but you've also distorted the truth deliberately. Aren't you too shameless? I'm afraid that will damage the direct line's image. When Si Yihan finished saying that righteously, not a single sound could be heard. Jiang Lihan's jaw dropped to the floor and Xie Qianchuan's eyes also shot open in shock, and even Yi Wanwan was dumbfounded. As for Elder Shui, he lost the ability to breathe, his face swelling red as he scrambled for something to say. He seriously never expected Lord Azura to actually speak such unreasonable words. Elder Shui, Lord Azura, you, the mighty leader of Azura, are actually acting like this despicable scoundrel. Elder Shui will meet at the arbitration council. Show him out. Big Dipper was startled for a moment before quickly responding and leading his subordinates to escort the guests out. After the direct line group left, Yuan immediately pounced toward her darling with sparkling eyes and a holler. Baby, why are you so awesome? Read more chapters at List Novel. Calm. The man's gaze softened the instant the girl entered his arms. He reached out and indulgently patted her head. Jiang Lihan simply couldn't believe this and outrage filled his body. He shakily pointed at Si Yihan and shouted, "Damn, Ajio, what's wrong with you? If you've been kidnapped, blink your eyes." Si Yihan coldly glanced at him. Jiang Lihan was rattled. "You're freaking marked by the company you keep. Look at how this woman has changed you. I really never expected you to have such a lack of integrity. I've misjudged you." Yuan kissed Si Yihan on the cheek before peering at Jiang Lihan. "Tifiske, I also never expected you'd be as naive as that old man, Jiang Lihan. You actually thought my baby would still have something like integrity after being with me for so long? Can I interview you? Just what were you thinking? Originally you thought you just looked ugly and lacked good looks but didn't expect you to also lack intelligence." Veins bulged on Jiang Lihan's forehead, and he immediately erupted. "Damn, who are you freaking calling ugly? So out of all the things I said, this guy only paid attention to me calling him ugly? Damn girl, come here. Come here and tell me. Who are you calling ugly? Look at my face and say it again." Jiang Lihan had completely forgotten he was arguing with her about who was shameless and was fixated on the issue of his face. However, Yuan had no care for him anymore and all of her attention was glued to Si Yihan. "Ajio, thank you." It wasn't until later that she realized how meaningful Si Yihan's visit was. If it weren't for him, her plan might not have been so successful. Now, he even tossed aside his integrity for her. Si Yihan narrowed his eyes. "I'll give you another chance." Yuan grinned and obediently corrected herself. "Moi. Love you the most." Chapter 22:13 Disguises litter the ground and paramours fill the world. When Jiang Lihan saw how Si Yihan was utterly bewitched by that female bandit, Yuan, he nearly reduced his teeth into powder from how hard he ground them. "Damn. I finally remember who you are. Aren't you that little girl from Azura's restricted area back then?" Jiang Lihan suddenly recalled the past. Yuan stared at the sky, feigning ignorance. "Azura's restricted area? What restricted area?" Jiang Lihan glared at her. "Stop pretending with me. I'd recognize you even if you turned into ash." Yuan rolled her eyes at him, speechless. She simply remarked, "Ajio, why would you have such an ugly friend?" And this guy suddenly remembered her now. What an oddball. With old and new grudges welling up, Jiang Lihan instantly disliked her even more. He immediately sprinted towards Si Yihan and solemnly said to him, "Ajio, didn't you say this girl was an ordinary resident who accidentally entered the restricted area? Didn't you say she was especially naive and innocent? How did she turn into the demoness? I swear, this girl is a lackey from the Fearless Alliance 1 second, the president of the Fearless Alliance, Bro Flattop, the next second, the second miss of the Nya family the second after that, and the demon instructor from the Scarlet Flames Academy a second later. Her disguises litter the ground and paramours fill the world. She's absolutely unreliable. Ajio, how could you believe her just like this?" Yuan's blood boiled. Damn, what did he mean by her disguises littering the ground and her paramours filling the world? Huh? Who would talk like him? Si Yihan sent the twittering Jiang Lihan a warning glance. "Shut up." Jiang Lihan disgruntledly continued, "Ajio, don't be bewitched by this woman's face. Have you forgotten how this woman cuckolded you? Do you seriously believe in a piece of lousy paper and believe some DNA test and think that nearly 5-year-old kid is your child? What if he's another man's, huh? Wouldn't you be raising another man's son for him then?" Jiang Lihan. Yi Wanwan pulled back her sleeves and was about to beat up Jiang Lihan when a child calling, "Mommy," suddenly came from the door. Baby Tang Tang. Tang Tang appeared to have just woken up and was standing by the door, adorably rubbing his eyes. When Yi Wanwan heard baby Tang Tang's voice, the rage on her face instantly disappeared without a trace, and she ran over to hug the little fella with a bright smile on her face. "Baby, why did you come here? Are you hungry?" Sorry. Mommy was caught up in something and will immediately go eat with you." Yi Wanwan placed a smooch on her son's face as she spoke. Yi Wanwan then glanced at Si Yihan before giving Tang Tang a look. "Baby, your daddy's here." Upon hearing that, the little fella finally looked at Si Yihan and childishly called, "Daddy." Si Yihan grunted. Yi Wanwan nodded with content as she watched the father and son duo. "Good baby, go on, let daddy hug you." The little fella, who was normally incredibly sassy in front of Si Yihan, immediately nodded obediently when he heard his mommy and pattered towards Si Yihan, extending his short little arms. Si Yihan looked at this son, who acted like a completely different person in front of Yi Wanwan and was cute and docile and obedient, and grew silent. Could there be a problem with his method of interacting with his son? A moment later, the man knelt down and picked up the little fella with extreme gentleness. Jiang Lihan and Xie Qianchuan stared at the father and son duo, eyes wide and minds blank. "Impossible!" Jiang Lihan protested. Yi Wanwan glanced at the dazed Jiang Lihan. She nonchalantly crossed her arms across her chest and expressionlessly said, Come on, Jiang, stare at my baby's face and say it again. Who's my baby's real dad?" Jiang Lihan looked at the child, then the adult version of Si Yihan, and seriously couldn't say these two weren't real father and son. He incredulously exclaimed, "Shit! Ajio, this child really is your son." They always thought Si Yihan was the least fond of females amongst the three of them and never expected he already had such a large son. Jiang Lihan thought of something and a realization dawned on him. "I was wondering why you were so bent on staying here and wouldn't go back no matter what. It turns out it's because of this woman. You even have a child. Don't tell me you're planning to marry this woman?" Jiang Lihan's words chafed Yi Wanwan. "Of course. We're definitely going to get married. What, do you have objections?" Si Yihan's eyes imperceptibly brightened. Jiang Lihan was somewhat surprised and turned to Si Yihan. "Ajio, are you serious? What if your mom?" "Jiang Lihan," Si Yihan said. Interrupted by Si Yihan, Jiang Lihan could only sheepishly zip his mouth and couldn't say anything further. Xie Qianchuan cleared his throat and pulled Jiang Lihan. "Enough already. Don't touch a sore spot. I said it before, I'm unrelated to her." Si Yihan's face was icier than ever before. Yi Wanwan couldn't help but grasp Si Yihan's slightly chilled hand. Although Si Yihan hid it well, Yi Wanwan could still sense something was off about his emotions. There were a scant number of things that could affect Si Yihan's emotions in this world. It seemed to be taboo to mention Si Yihan's mother to him. In truth, she speculated that Si Yihan probably didn't have a good relationship with his mother based on his experience. Yi Wanwan didn't want to bring up painful matters, so she never pressed about things related to his mother and only knew he had broken off his relationship with his mother. Judging from Jiang Lihan's tone, Si Yihan's mother appeared to not approve of her and Si Yihan's relationship. Yi Wanwan considered it. His mother previously disapproved, probably because their statuses didn't match, but now that she had recovered her identity as the second miss of the Nye family, she should at least be a worthy match for the ancient Si clan, right? Yi Wanwan brushed away her chaotic thoughts. Anyway, Si Yihan said he'd severed his relationship with his mother, so his relationship with his mother was unrelated to them no matter what. Tang Tang lay on Si Yihan's shoulder and perplexedly blinked. "Daddy's mommy?" Yi Wanwan patted the little fella's head and changed the topic. "Let's go. Daddy and mommy will take you to eat something yummy." The little fella instantly bobbed his head, his eyes shining. "Okay." Seeing how the ship had already sailed for this family of three, Jiang Lihan looked agonized, as though his ripe cabbage had been dug out by a hog. "Woman, you're seriously underhanded." Yi Wanwan spread her hands. You're flattering me. If you consider Xiaobing, Mantu, and popping candy underhanded, then sure, I'm really underhanded. The matchmaker god can testify that I really didn't use any underhanded methods, alright? Jiang Lihan chortled. Liar. Keep lying. If you didn't use any underhanded methods, don't tell me Agio threw himself into your arms. Before Yi Wanwan could respond, Si Yihan's low voice was heard. Do you have any objections? Yi Wanwan gloatingly glanced at Jiang Lihan before jubilantly looking at Si Yihan. Si Yihan was silent for a moment. Wasn't everything moved out? Indeed, everything had been moved out of the Fearless Alliance and into the rows of Death's headquarters. Even ball pens and pen containers hadn't remained. No. We haven't had time to move the pots and pans in the kitchen yet. Big Dipper suddenly interjected. I came here today to move those pots and pans, actually. Since when was their Fearless Alliance stingy to this extent and have to move their pots and pans too? Couldn't they buy a new set? How much could that possibly cost? Sis Feng told me to move things earlier, but I forgot about it. You won't blame me, right, Sis Feng? Big Dipper asked with a smile. Yi Wanwan, forget about what I thought. No need. Si Yihan looked at Yi Wanwan. Come with me to Azura. Yi Wanwan wanted to agree, but on second thought, she shook her head. Right now, the Fearless Alliance and the Rows of Death hadn't finished merging. The elders and higher-ups of the Fearless Alliance and the higher-ups of the Rows of Death were already in a fiery tussle over the distribution of positions, and there were too many matters requiring her attention, so she definitely couldn't go have fun in Azura. Agio, I still have things to do here, so it'll have to wait until everything's done, Yi Wanwan said after some thought. Si Yihan didn't say anything and lightly set Tang Tang down on the floor. He gently patted Tang Tang on the head. Daddy will leave now. Stay with Mommy. Okay, Daddy. Tang Tang nodded firmly. Yi Wanwan pulled Si Yihan back. Agio, I'm pretty busy here, so how about you take Tang Tang with you? I'll come over after I finish taking care of things. All right, Si Yihan agreed. Mommy, I can help. Tang Tang stared at Yi Wanwan, his eyes shining. Sorry, Tang Tang, go with Daddy for now, okay? And have Daddy cook you something yummy. Yi Wanwan apologized with a comforting smile. Tang Tang was silent for a long while before finally agreeing. Are you hungry? Si Yihan knelt down and picked Tang Tang back up. Tang Tang was quiet and glanced at Yi Wanwan before nodding and replying, I'm hungry. I want to see Daddy's cooking. Agio, your son is so well behaved. Xie Qianchuan looked at Si Yihan with envy. Jiang Lihan was grumbling in his mind though. How could a child birthed by that woman be this well-behaved? It's absolutely illogical. Soon, Si Yihan left the Fearless Alliance while carrying Tang Tang with Xie Qianchuan and Jiang Lihan in tow. Yi Wanwan was pleased by the sight of Tang Tang and Si Yihan getting along and a grin spread across her face. Put me down. I can walk by myself. The second they walked out of the Fearless Alliance building, Tong Tong's expression changed, and he disdainfully ordered Si Yihan around. Si Yihan had two completely different sons depending on whether his mom was there versus when his mom wasn't there. After Tang Tang was placed down, he pointed at the restaurant up ahead. Daddy, let's go there to eat. Jiang Lihan was startled. Nephew, didn't you just say you wanted to eat your dad's cooking? Tang Tang shot Jiang Lihan a glance. What does it have to do with you, ugly freak? Anyone who bullies Mommy isn't a good person. Jiang Lihan froze in his spot, his expression incredulous. What did this little bastard call me? Ugly freak. Was their whole family blind? Could they please visit the ophthalmologist? They were beyond cure already. He knew it. He knew that a child birthed by that woman absolutely wouldn't be some angel. As expected. Tang, you can't talk about Uncle Jiang like that, Si Yihan expressionlessly said to his son. Tang Tang looked up at his dad. Daddy doesn't agree with Mommy's opinion? Si Yihan turned silent instantly and spoke a moment later. I don't disagree, Jiang Lihan, this heartless, inverted world. Inside the Fearless Alliance, Yi Wanwan was clueless about the interlude that occurred between Tang Tang and Jiang Lihan and the others. She was currently walking around the building with Big Dipper. I can swear on my life that the entire Fearless Alliance has been emptied, Sis Fong. There's only a set of pots and bowls left in the kitchen, and we absolutely didn't leave anything else behind. Big Dipper told Yuanwan. Yuanwan nodded. There really didn't seem to be anything else movable left. At that time, they would sue Direct Line at the Arbitration Council and pull the Fearless Alliance back from the Rose of Death, saying she had to use a large sum of money to reclaim the Fearless Alliance back from the Rose of Death. That seemed plausible. Hold on, we haven't finished moving everything from our treasury yet. I remembered there's a giant table that's crafted from some extremely precious wood. Come back here with me in a few days and help me move it. Yuanwan said. That's right, that's right. Sis Fong has such a good memory, I almost forgot about it. Big Dipper nodded frantically. Yuanwan sneered. Nonsense, her memory could be called photographic for everything related to money. Sometime later, Yuanwan and Big Dipper left the Fearless Alliance and headed to the Rose of Death's headquarters. Over the next 2 days, Yuanwan took care of a majority of the arguments and conflicts between the higher-ups from the Rose of Death and the Fearless Alliance. On the second day, a piece of news arrived from the Direct Line. Big Dipper pushed open the office door and sprinted inside. What are you doing? Don't you know how to knock? Yuanwan glanced at Big Dipper. She was having a discussion with First Elder. Sis Fong, you don't know but I'm telling you, something big happened. Big Dipper yelled hastily. Read more chapters at List Novel. Yuanwan furrowed her brows lightly. Something big happened? What happened now? Yuanwan asked. Sis Fong, do you still remember Elder Shui from the Direct Line? Big Dipper asked. Rubbish. Yuanwan glanced at Big Dipper. It had only been a few days, so how could she have forgotten about him? Sis Fong, that Elder Shui fell gravely ill from his anger after leaving the Fearless Alliance last time. Now he's lying in bed all day long. He'll probably be angered to death by you. Big Dipper said. Yuanwan was stunned. Elder Shui from the Direct Line fell gravely ill due to being angered by her? First Elder quietly glanced at Yuanwan. Their president did seem to be capable of that. In all of the independent state, he had never met someone as shameless as her. First in China, during their battle with Si Wutian, the president calmly called the police, and then, there was no, and then. He heard that the president obtained the white tiger seal on the island, because she made a bet with the owner of the white tiger seal. She bet that the other guy wouldn't dare to eat shit. The tricks she played with the Direct Line were particularly indescribable. Sigh, that Elder Shui has lived gloriously all his life and is fairly reputable in the Direct Line. The people he befriends are all well respected, so he's probably never encountered someone like the president and isn't used to it. It's to be expected that he got ill from his fury, First Elder remarked with a faint smile. First Elder, what are you saying? What do you mean by respectable people? Aren't we also respectable people in the independent state? The only thing I can say is that Elder Shui has a weak psyche and is bad at handling bad news. Who can he blame for that? We didn't violate any terms of the treaty. Big Dipper said. That's true. First Elder nodded. Yuanwan shrugged. If he's really angered to death, it has nothing to do with me. Say, if he really dies, the Direct Line won't come to seek revenge from us, right? Big Dipper and First Elder met each other's eyes. Big Dipper looked at Yuanwan. Sis Fong, they probably won't seek revenge from First Elder and me. Even if the Direct Line wants revenge, they'd only seek it from you probably. Yuanwan, news of Elder Shui from the Direct Line being angered to a seriously ill state by the president of the Fearless Alliance spread throughout the entire independent state within half a day. Many groups secretly called Yuanwan contemptible and shameless. How old was Elder Shui? He was an old man in his 70s, yet look at how infuriated he was. The leaders who were rescued from the island by Yuanwan all shook their heads. They'd personally experienced President Fearless' shamelessness for themselves. Thankfully, they were still young and had high tolerances, or else they would have been sent to their graves in their anger back on the island because of President Fearless. For some reason, those leaders suddenly pitted Elder Shui. This old guy was seriously unlucky. Although he had survived a life of constant strife, those were high-quality struggles. He had probably never encountered someone as shameless and thick-skinned as President Fearless in his whole life. He only had his bad luck to blame. Yi Wanwan didn't pay much attention to the episode with Elder Shui and dragged Big Dipper and some other people back to the Fearless Alliance to transport that valuable table. Sis Feng, we can just have other people do such a minor task. Why do we have to come here ourselves to move it personally? Big Dipper asked. Yi Wanwan shot Big Dipper a glance. Rubbish, it's so precious and valuable. What if they damaged it in the moving process? I wouldn't be able to pay for it even if I sold you. Big Dipper, I'm worth less than a table? They had just moved the table from the treasury when Third Elder's pupils contracted suddenly and he looked ahead. President! Third Elder shouted. What is it? Yi Wanwan reflexively turned to Third Elder. It's the mysterious person who Nie Linglong made contact with. Third Elder pointed ahead of them. Yi Wanwan and Big Dipper followed the direction of Third Elder's finger. A tall figure shrouded in a black robe had appeared in the Fearless Alliance without them knowing. There was an elite from the direct line standing next to the black-robed person. Are you certain it's him, Third Elder? Yi Wanwan questioned. I'm certain. Third Elder nodded vehemently. It's definitely this person, President. I'd recognize him even if he turned into ash. Didn't you say it was too dark that night and you didn't see them clearly? Yi Wanwan expressed her doubt. I didn't see the person clearly, but I recognize the clothes. Third Elder replied. Moreover, this person is with a member of the direct line, so there's no way I'm wrong. Yi Wanwan's gaze latched onto the black-robed person, a cold glint flitting through her eyes. It was this person who discussed with Nie Linglong the plan to eliminate her brother, nameless Nie. If this person hadn't agreed, eldest brother absolutely wouldn't have died. Yi Wanwan didn't waste any words and launched into the air. She gathered a frightening amount of strength into her fist and mercilessly attacked the black-robed person. Not a member of the direct line, you're dead. Upon seeing this, the direct line elite instantly protected the black-robed person and also swung a punch toward Yi Wanwan. Bam! The two fists connected, causing a thunderous boom. The direct line elite was sent flying back, akin to a snipped kite. Damn, Sis Feng is awesome. Fuck him over. Hit him. Big Dipper loudly hollered from the side. You killed my eldest brother. Yi Wanwan stared at the black-robed person centimeters from her. Her entire person was similar to a demon who had crawled out of the deepest pits of hell. I want you dead. As Yi Wanwan spoke, she leaped toward the black-robed person like a ferocious beast. However, the black-robed person stood in their spot, not shifting a step. Boom. Everyone watched as the fist that Yi Wanwan put all her might into was nonchalantly caught by the black-robed person. Yi Wanwan had to use everything she had to pull her hand back from the black-robed person's grasp. Yi Wanwan frowned deeply as she surveyed the black-robed person. This person? The black-robed person slowly walked toward Yi Wanwan. Swish. The black-robed person's hand swung through the air. He was so fast he couldn't be seen with the naked eye, and even Yi Wanwan couldn't catch a trace of this strike. Reflexively, Yi Wanwan crossed both arms in front of herself and forcefully accepted the hit, staggering several steps back. However, Yi Wanwan had just stabilized herself when the black-robed person launched another attack. This continued until the fourth exchange of blows, after which Yi Wanwan was seized by the black-robed person and couldn't struggle free. Damn! This scene stupefied Big Dipper and Third Elder. They were both aware of their president's fearsome strength. The current president's martial strength surpassed her old self's, and calling her a top-notch expert of the independent state would be putting it lightly. So how come their formidable President Fearless couldn't last more than a few blows from this black-robed person from the direct lines? Third Elder, hit him. Kill him. Big Dipper yelled. Big Dipper, hurry. Save the president. Third Elder also cried hastily. Damn, we'll attack together. Okay. Big Dipper and Third Elder immediately charged toward the black-robed person. However, the results didn't surprise anyone. After a single blow, Third Elder and Big Dipper were knocked to the ground by the black-robed person. I came to the Fearless Alliance to obtain one item. The black-robed person's hoarse voice was heard. It wasn't until then that Yi Wanwan confirmed this person was indeed male. Yes, that table is yours, Big Dipper hastily offered. The black-robed man glanced at the table but quickly looked away. Elder Shui's severely ill state has nothing to do with us. We're also members of the direct line. We signed an alliance treaty with the direct line. Do you want to visit the arbitration council? Third Elder's eyes turned. This man was truly too terrifying, and there was no way they could win against him relying on martial strength. I'm not a member of the direct line, the black-robed man calmly said. You're not a member of the direct line? Everyone was startled. Heh! The man in black snorted. If you want to sue the direct line, go ahead. Yi Wanwan was contemplative. The information they had said this man most likely wasn't a member of the direct line and appeared to be a military consultant who provided strategies for the direct line. Could it be he was hired by the direct line at a great fee? Hand over the item, sir. Soon, the direct line elite knocked down by Yi Wanwan's punch stood back up again and returned to the black-robed man's side with a reverent expression. The black-robed man ignored him and focused on Yi Wanwan instead. You're not bad. Nye Linglong died in your hands. Yi Wanwan's lips curled up. What? Does your heart hurt? Heart hurt. The black-robed man shook his head. She was merely one of my dogs. If she dies, she dies. Before Yi Wanwan could respond, the direct line elite tied Yi Wanwan up and brought her to the Fearless Alliance's prison. As for Third Elder and Big Dipper, they were bound and locked in the office. Inside the prison, the direct line elite tied Yi Wanwan to a wall and sneered. President Bai, you're the first one to make Sir take action personally. Yi Wanwan stared at the black-robed man nearby and didn't respond. President Bai, I'm telling you, be more rational and hand over the item, the direct line elite shouted coldly. What item? Yi Wanwan was apathetic. The ring, of course, the direct line elite answered. It's what the Sir wants. President Fearless, you shouldn't resist futilely. Heh, what a pity. I've destroyed that ring already. Yi Wanwan snorted. Before the direct line elite could continue, the black-robed man stood up and walked toward Yi Wanwan, his gaze quickly landing on Yi Wanwan's fiercely clenched fist. The black-robed man shot forward and stared at Yi Wanwan. Open your hand or else I'll immediately kill the two people upstairs. Yi Wanwan frowned deeply. Having no other choice, she opened her fist. When the black-robed man saw the ring in Yi Wanwan's hand, he cautiously picked it up, appearing to greatly value this ring. Yi Wanwan inwardly snickered. This ring was actually a counterfeit. She previously asked Big Dipper's mother, and the woman told her this ring had nothing to do with the Rose of Death. Ever since Yi Wanwan learned this ring represented supreme power in the Rose of Death, she had hidden it and started wearing this fake, the main purpose being to mislead people. Just now, she intentionally clutched this ring tightly in her hand and pretended she really valued this ring in order to deceive this black-robed man. Yi Wanwan believed this black-robed man had never seen the genuine item. The black-robed man carefully examined the ring. This ring represents misfortune. Return it to me. Yi Wanwan shouted. Only then did the black-robed man look up from the ring and look at Yi Wanwan. However, he ignored her and put the ring on his finger. Sir, is this the ring? The direct line elite asked. It should be, the black-robed man replied. Then, sir, how about you leave first and I'll take care of everything else? A lecherous smile spread across the direct line elite's face as he appraised Yi Wanwan. President Fearless seriously had extraordinary looks. Do you know what I detest the most in my life? The black-robed man calmly questioned. Huh. The direct line elite was startled. I detest men who assault women the most in my life. Before the direct line elite realized what happened, the black-robed man choked him by the neck and a kachak was heard several seconds later as his neck was snapped broken. Chapter 22:20 Could it be piece of shit? Yi Wanwan's brows furrowed deeply as she stared at the black-robed man in front of her. This black-robed man's strength was unfathomable unless it was Yi Shuehan who fought with her. However, Yi Shuehan seemed to also be a member of the direct line. After pocketing the ring, the black-robed man didn't take another look at Yi Wanwan and turned to leave. Several hours later, Third Elder struggled out of the rope around him. After he untied Big Dipper, the two of them made a beeline for the underground prison. "Are you okay, Sis Fong?" Big Dipper yelled anxiously when he saw the tied-up Yi Wanwan. "Don't waste time. Come here and untie me already," Yi Wanwan said. As she spoke, Third Elder had reached her already and started loosening her ropes. "Damn, Sis Fong, what happened? Isn't this that elite from the direct line?" Big Dipper froze when he saw the corpse by his feet. "Just what happened, President? Where's that black-robed man?" Third Elder cautiously examined their surroundings. "He left already. He was also the one who killed this guy." Yi Wanwan then proceeded to briefly explain everything. After she finished her explanation, Third Elder and Big Dipper stared at each other, bewildered. That black-robed man was truly a ruthless character and would casually kill even his own people. "I never expected someone like that to exist in the direct line. Isn't that a bit scary?" Third Elder couldn't help but feel scared. If that black-robed man wished it, all of them could have died there today. "That's right. I didn't expect Sis Fong to also not be a match for him," Big Dipper nodded frantically. Before Yi Wanwan could respond, Big Dipper thought of something and exclaimed with a surprised expression, "Wait, Sis Fong, how did the people from the direct line know we were going to return to the Fearless Alliance today? Could it be we have traitors?" Yi Wanwan shot Big Dipper a glance. "Traitor your ass. What do you mean?" Big Dipper was dumbfounded. "Just like how we inserted many scouts near the direct line's branches, do you think the direct line wouldn't have scouts monitoring us too? Do you think everyone's like you?" Yi Wanwan asked. Big Dipper, "President, what should we do now?" Third Elder inquired a moment later. "We'll clean this place up first then head back," Yi Wanwan replied. Around evening, Yi Wanwan, Big Dipper, and Third Elder returned to the Rose of Death's headquarters. When First Elder and the others learned about the incident, they all rushed to Yi Wanwan's office. "No way," First Elder looked pensive as he sat on the side. "I've never heard about an expert at this level in the direct line. Even the president couldn't withstand a few blows from him? Isn't he too frightening?" "He's not just frightening, he's simply terrifying." Big Dipper got worked up instantly. "You weren't there, but that black-robed man from the direct line sent a punch and a kick and Third Elder and I were smashed to the ground without room to retaliate. Only Sis Fong could fend off a few blows. Say, do you think that black-robed man was piece of shit?" The silent Second Elder suddenly suggested. Fu Mingshi nodded. "My grandfather is right." Yi Wanwan was contemplative. Logically speaking, it shouldn't be Yi Shuehan. With Yi Shuehan's personality, if he really wanted to do something, there was no need to act so covertly. Furthermore, Yi Shuehan's target had always been the ancient clans from the collateral branch. This subordinate admires you logically speaking. This shouldn't be related to Yi Shuehan. It was just that. Yi Wanwan couldn't be certain since the black-robed man's martial technique did hold some resemblance to Yi Shuehan. However, it probably isn't piece of shit. After all, piece of shit only holds a grudge against the ancient clans. Big Dipper said after a moment of silence. "Not necessarily." Seven Star shook his head. "Piece of shit is young master's teacher. So it would make sense if the black-robed man didn't kill you guys because of that relationship." Silence draped over everyone in the room. On the surface, piece of shit only hated the collateral ancient clans, but behind the scenes, no one knew the true story. Yi Wanwan sat in her office chair, pensive. Indeed, Yi Shuehan's biggest target should be those collateral branch ancient clans. However, many years had passed, yet Yi Shuehan still hadn't eradicated those ancient clans. Regardless of how strong Yi Shuehan was, he was merely one person and those collateral ancient clans possessed an abundance of experts and immense power, so it wasn't realistic for Yi Shuehan to eradicate every ancient clan by himself. If Yi Shuihan learned about the Rose of Death's secret and knew about the ring in her possession, which represented the supreme power in the Rose of Death, then would Yi Shuihan want to obtain that ring, become the new leader of the Rose of Death and use the Rose of Death's power to annihilate every ancient clan in the independent state in one move? Of course, all of this was mere conjecture. Yi Wanwan couldn't determine whether the black-robed person and Yi Shuihan were connected and the same person or not yet. Regardless of who it is, don't publicize this matter for now. Yi Wanwan looked at the people in her office as she made the order. Sis Feng, of course we can't publicize it. The mighty president of the Fearless Alliance was crushed by an unknown man in black. If news of this got out, where would I put my pride? I mean, where would the Fearless Alliance put its pride? And how would we stand tall in the independent state from now on? It's too humiliating. Big Dipper said. Yi Wanwan glanced at Big Dipper. What can you expect from a hog but a grunt? Prohibiting them from spreading it had nothing to do with being humiliated. If other people learned about such a formidable expert guarding the direct line, their morale would definitely be affected. What would those groups who had joined the collateral branch already think? Moreover, an expert from the direct line sought out President Fearless in the Fearless Alliance simply to steal something. What did he steal? Did he steal it? A lot of speculation would brew, which would damage the collateral branch. Hence, this type of information absolutely couldn't spread, and sealing off any leaks of the information was the best strategy. I understand your meaning, President. Everyone present today, lock down the information and don't let it get out. First Elder immediately understood Yi Wanwan's thoughts at a glance. Haha, I have to say that the president might be young but she's careful and meticulous. This subordinate truly admires you. Truly, truly admirable. Third Elder immediately exclaimed. Yi Wanwan turned to Third Elder. I believe First Elder knows what I mean, but are you certain you also know, Third Elder? Of course this subordinate knows. How can I not know what First Elder knows? Third Elder hastily replied. Then, what did I mean? Yi Wanwan asked. Third Elder. Videotape. Third Elder looked at Yi Wanwan with a somewhat embarrassed expression. It's actually like this, President. What the President means isn't important. What's important is that the President is wise and gallant and thoughtful and meticulous. Yi Wanwan sighed. This was still truly the Fearless Alliance. Nothing had changed despite the transfer to the Rose of Death. How long will it be until the direct line and the collateral branch start fighting? Yi Wanwan asked First Elder a moment later. In the next few days probably. These past 2 days, the direct line and the collateral branch have been testing each other's waters and had several skirmishes already, First Elder replied. Yi Wanwan nodded. The independent state's peaceful days were completely over. However, strictly speaking, the independent state had never been peaceful. President, what are our plans? First Elder inquired. Fifth Elder glanced at First Elder. Keep wasting time. Lord Azura is a member of the collateral branch, so of course we have to support the collateral branch. What other plans could we have? Then the President is intending to support the collateral branch under the Rose of Death's name? First Elder asked. Yi Wanwan nodded. That was indeed her plan. Before Yi Wanwan could act though, the Nye family suddenly announced their support for the collateral branch in their war with the direct line. Following the Nye family's announcement, the Ji family also announced their support for the collateral branch. Amongst the 4 great clans, only the Shen family and the Ling family hadn't acted yet. It wasn't hard to understand the Shen family's silence though. In the independent state, the Shen family were mainly businessmen, so they didn't wish to get entangled in this war between the direct line and the collateral branch. If they rashly expressed their support, they'd not only have to provide a large sum of money but would also be greatly impacted if the side they supported was defeated. As for the Ling family, Yi Wanwan knew little about them. The Ling family did originally intend to support the collateral branch, but now that Patriarch and Madame Nye had returned and announced their support for the collateral branch, the Ling family didn't seem to want to be in the same camp as the Nye family due to their previous conflicts. However, 2 days later, the Shen family and the Ling family both announced their support for the collateral branch at the same time. 3 days later, Sis Feng, there's someone here from the Martial Arts Union. They say their president is inviting you to meet at their headquarters, Big Dipper reported to Yi Wanwan. Yi Wanwan wrinkled her brows. Si Xia hadn't appeared since his escape from the remote island. She didn't expect him to invite her to visit the Martial Arts Union today. Sis Feng, you aren't really planning to go, right? Big Dipper looked at Yi Wanwan. I bet the Martial Arts Union is up to no good, seeking you out at a time like this. Of course I won't go. Yi Wanwan snorted. Tell their president if he wants to see me, then he has to come here personally. Okay. Big Dipper nodded and left. Half a day later, Big Dipper entered the office with a videotape in hand. Sis Feng, this was sent here by the Martial Arts Union. They said there's something you're interested in on the tape and told you to take a look. Big Dipper placed the videotape on the desk. Yi Wanwan was startled by Big Dipper's words. A videotape sent by the Martial Arts Union? Alright, got it. Yi Wanwan nodded. After Big Dipper left the office, Yi Wanwan picked up the videotape and carefully examined it. Based on its appearance, this seemed to be a normal videotape without anything special to it. Chapter 22-23. Grandpa Yi Wanwan quickly placed the videotape in the machine. She would like to see what the heck Si Xia was up to. Yi Wanwan turned pensive as she watched the television. This videotape actually contained copies of surveillance footage, but the video quality was fairly clear. It's me, Yi Wanwan frowned as the video played. The girl who appeared on the TV screen was worryless Nye from a few years ago. Several seconds later, a white-haired elderly man appeared. Grandpa? Yi Wanwan was astonished. Why did this videotape contain her and Grandpa? Judging from the surveillance footage, it was probably the inside of the Martial Arts Union. Going by the time, it was probably surveillance footage from several years ago. Before Yi Wanwan could regain her wits, the girl in the video and the elderly man erupted into an intense argument. In the end, the dagger in the girl's hand pierced the elderly man's chest. As Yi Wanwan watched the video, she froze in her spot, incredulous. She used a dagger and pierced Grandpa's chest. Instantly, Yi Wanwan knelt down and both familiar and strange memories rushed into her mind. In the Martial Arts Union, the girl pursed her lips as she looked at the strategic elderly man. Grandpa, when will you let me come and help? All my martial techniques are utterly useless. Don't you find it a terrible loss? The elderly man glanced at the girl. If my intelligence is correct, you're the one who built that fearless alliance. The girl's expression shifted. No way. Grandpa, how could I have built it? Humph, are you saying my intelligence is wrong? The elderly man was displeased. Damn Si Xia. He's the one in charge of the intelligence network. He actually sold me out. The girl fumed with rage. Si Xia had nothing to do with it. Tell me, why did you build some bullshit fearless alliance and recruit a bunch of ignorant and incompetent old men to act as elders? What in the world were you thinking? The elderly man frowned at her. The girl latched onto the elderly man's arm. Grandpa, don't you think it's because I'm bored? Anyway, the people I recruited might be ignorant and incompetent and fool around a lot, but at least they're all truly capable. Moreover, I built a group because of you, Grandpa. Because of me? The elderly man glanced at the girl. Tell me, how was it because of me? Grandpa, look, after my faction grows strong, if Grandpa runs into trouble or difficulties one day, I can help you out. Also, didn't you teach me, Grandpa? The strength of one person isn't true power. It's gathering strong people to your side and banding them with you like strands of a rope which represents true power. I'm just acting as Grandpa taught me, the girl explained cheerfully. The elderly man exasperatedly looked at the girl. I probably won't be able to find another person with a mouth like yours in the entire independent state. You can turn the dead into the living and have a skin thicker than the independent state. Grandpa, it's not news that I'm thick-skinned. Don't tell me you just found out, the girl retorted. The elderly man shook his head and didn't say anything else. The scene changed. In some command room, the elderly man was sitting in the center while Si Xia was sitting in the assistant position. Worryless, I have a task for you. The elderly man spoke while looking at the girl. Recalling the pa, the girl glanced at the nearby Si Xia. Grandpa, I'm not the right one to ask. You should ask the one sitting next to you. You give every good thing to him. Is he your real grandson? Sister, what you're saying is wrong. Si Xia looked at Yuanwan. I'm Grandpa's deputy, so that's not much different from a real grandson. Blah, you shameless thing. Were you the one who told Grandpa I built the Fearless Alliance last time? The girl fiercely glared at Si Xia. We might be sister and brother, but work is work, and there needs to be a line between public and private matters. Grandpa told me to investigate it, so what could I have done? Don't blame me if you want someone to blame. Blame Grandpa, Si Xia replied placidly. The girl's expression changed at once, and she pointed at Si Xia. Good lad, your wings are fully grown now. Alright, just wait. If I don't skin a layer from you, I'm your younger sister, and you're my elder brother. I was wrong, Si Xia immediately replied. Quiet. The elderly man swept his eyes over the girl and Si Xia. The girl and boy instantly turned silent. Azura is brazen and audacious and is publicly resisting the martial arts union. I need the Fearless Alliance to act as a spearhead and recruit more factions, the elderly man said to Yuanwan. Azura? The girl was startled. That's one of the 3 core factions of prison, right? That's right. That's what my intelligence says. Si Xia nodded. Grandpa, Si Xia's martial arts skills are good, so how about I pull some elites from the Fearless Alliance and have him lead the team? Si Xia is part of the intelligence department anyway, so he rarely shows his face and not many people in the independent state know him, Yi Wanwan suggested. No. Si Xia nodded without any hesitation. No? Well, you've learned how to resist now? Your sister, want you to do something and you can't. What use are you? Yi Wanwan yelled while pointing at Si Xia. Sister, that's not what I meant, Si Xia exasperatedly replied. Actually, the leader of Azura is my 9th uncle. Although we haven't met many times and don't have much affection between us, he's still my uncle, so I won't participate in the war between the Martial Arts Union and Azura. Your uncle? The girl was stunned. Damn, that's too explosive. Worryless, what did Grandpa teach you? Look at you. Do you resemble a girl at all? You say damn every other word. Where's your propriety? The elderly man looked at the girl with displeasure. What about it? It's not like you've raised me like a girl since I was young, Grandpa, the girl rebutted. The elderly man wanted to say something but ended up forcibly stifling it. Alright, Grandpa, don't be angry. I'll lead the team, alright. It's just Azura. I'll annihilate them for you, Grandpa. The girl's lips curled up into a bone-chilling smile. No, you can't underestimate Azura's power. Out of concern for your safety, you can't lead the team. You just need to find a capable person to lead the team, the elderly man refuted. Grandpa, no way. Everyone inside the Fearless Alliance is like my brother. Whether they're old or young, male or female, dumb or clever. I treat them all the same, alright? You're only worried about my safety, but my brother's lives are also lives, the girl said. Brothers or not, I don't care. I don't care about whether other people live or die, but you have to restrain yourself. Your life is most precious. And it's improper for a girl like you to keep hanging out with those people and calling them brothers. How will you get married in the future? The elderly man reprimanded her angrily. Am I your real granddaughter? At the mention of getting married, the girl was immediately rifled. Grandpa, I absolutely won't get married in my life. What are you saying? The elderly man shot up from his seat. At the sight of the elderly man's fury, the girl cowered instantly. She looked at her grandpa and grinned. Grandpa, I won't get married, but I'll marry someone, all right? I'll marry someone who's both handsome and filial. I guarantee you'll be satisfied. Sister, if you keep acting like this, I think it'll be hard for you to find someone. Si Xia shook his head. Come here, say that again. The girl sneered as she pressed down on Si Xia's shoulder. Sister, I'm just telling the truth. With your good looks, There aren't many people in the independent state who are worthy of you. Is there a problem with that? It really will be hard for you to find someone, Si Xia expressionlessly said. Lad, you're clever. Or else I would have beaten you to death already. The girl snorted. Upon seeing the elderly man about to say something again, the girl continued, Grandpa, don't rush it, all right? I have someone I like already, you know that. I won't marry anyone but him in my life. Oh. The elderly man was interested instantly, as though the girl's romantic affairs were more important than the battle with Azura. Tell me about it, whose child is it? The elderly man asked the girl with a smile. Si Xia answered before the girl could, Grandpa, it's Emperor Ji. Who told you to answer? Don't I have a mouth? Can't I answer? The girl fiercely glared at Si Xia. Sorry, it's a habit, Si Xia replied. Ji Shiran, is it? The elderly man was pensive. Grandpa, of course it's Ji Shiran. Who else in the independent state but Ji Shiran could catch my eye? The girl asked. Ji Shiran would take a liking to you? The elderly man looked doubtful. Read more chapters at List Novel. Calm the girl, Si Xia. Grandpa, can I confirm something? The girl looked at the elderly man. Confirm what? The elderly man was puzzled. Am I your real granddaughter? You didn't pick me up from a garbage can, right? Displeasure was written all over the girl's face. What do you mean, would Ji Shiran take a liking to me? Why wouldn't he take a liking to me? I'm a daughter of the Nye family, the real granddaughter of the Martial Arts Union's president, and also the president of the Fearless Alliance. Would my identity be a loss to Ji Shiran, huh? Grandpa, sister won't have a hard time getting married, so don't be so worried. It's a generational gap thing. Si Xia spoke up. Half a year later, the conflict between the Martial Arts Union and Azura completely erupted, and the Fearless Alliance was at the forefront, launching a ferocious attack on Azura. Following the addition of the Fearless Alliance, many different factions joined as well, wanting to take a share of the loot. Yi Wanwan didn't recognize the memories after that. The scene changed again. Inside the command room, the girl looked at the elderly man, her fists tightly clenched. Grandpa, how can you be like this? No, you absolutely can't. The elderly man glanced at the girl. Don't interfere in this matter. Grandpa, aren't we blessed right now? Why do you want to start a war? The girl couldn't understand anything as she looked at the elderly man. I told you it's not your business, the elderly man shouted. But, Grandpa, the Nye family has my parents and my brother. The girl shook her head. Grandpa naturally has plans for your brother. He's your brother but also my grandson. Do you think Grandpa would harm him? The elderly man asked apathetically. Even if you won't harm brother. Grandpa, what about my parents? The girl pressed. The zenith of power, how many times have I told you? They aren't your parents. They aren't worthy. The elderly man shouted harshly, why do you care for disloyal and dishonest people like them? Grandpa, I know what happened between you and Dad and Mom, and they were in the wrong, but so many years have passed. I believe they also want to sincerely apologize to you. Grandpa, let's go home, all right? Let's go to the Nye residence and reunite with Dad, Mom, and brother. If we've lost even our home, what point is there for you to dominate the entire independent state? The girl looked distressed. She didn't know why her grandpa would have this kind of ambition and why he wasn't satisfied by his position as the president of the Martial Arts Union. He actually wanted to dominate and rule over the entire independent state. The Martial Arts Union's power was above the 4 great clans and was merely beneath the collateral ancient clans. Wasn't this enough? Grandpa, what's so good about dominating the independent state? The zenith of power will make people lose their reason, the girl advised earnestly. Domination. The elderly man's eyes sparkled with an indescribable light. The elderly man turned to the girl. Worryless, do you know what the zenith of power is? It's freedom. Grandpa, aren't we free right now? We can do whatever we want, so why must we reach the zenith of power? The girl couldn't understand. Freedom isn't doing whatever you want. The elderly man shook his head. True freedom isn't doing whatever you don't want to do. Grandpa, you're speaking too profoundly. I don't understand, the girl responded. Even so, why do we need so many sacrifices? Why does it have to be the 4 great clans? Moreover, if you really did this, Grandpa, the Arbitration Council absolutely wouldn't let you go. The Arbitration Council? The elderly man mockingly chuckled. Every state in the 12 independent states is under the Arbitration Council's governance, but what have they contributed to the 12 independent states? Why do they get the say in every state's rules and systems? The girl was at a loss for words. Worryless, remember, aside from dominating the entire independent state, Grandpa also wants to completely lock down the independent state and seclude it from the world so that the Arbitration Council can't interfere with anything in our independent state anymore, the elderly man calmly said. The girl didn't object to this. If Grandpa really started implementing his plan, he'd definitely succeed. He had purchased a lot of weapons and explosives from the outside world, so the Arbitration Council would be at the end of their tether even if they wanted to interfere at that time. Anyway, G. Shiran, that bastard abandoned you too, so I'll bomb the G family too. I'll turn the 4 great clans into ash. The elderly man's eyes shimmered coldly. No, Grandpa, you absolutely can't. The girl looked resolute. Why can't I? If that bastard comes here right now and kowtows and apologizes to you, I might consider sparing his life. Is my granddaughter a person other people can bully however they want? The elderly man yelled. Grandpa, you purchased a lot of explosives saying you wanted to annihilate the 4 great clans, but in truth, you wanted to intimidate people? The ancient clans have the advantage in numbers and are divided into the direct line and the collateral branch. Grandpa, you want to use the destruction of the 4 great clans to intimidate the direct line and the collateral branch and make them submit to you. The girl's voice wavered as she spoke. Worryless, you're right. The elderly man didn't deny it and nodded. The direct line and the collateral branch are considered the strongest fighting forces in the independent state. As long as they submit to Grandpa, help Grandpa resist the Arbitration Council, and we use Grandpa's supply of weapons, we can lock the Arbitration Council out and keep the entire independent state under lockdown. From then on, Grandpa will determine every rule in the independent state. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.